You're on the clock, or you will be soon, and you got decisions to make. There's so much information to process so quickly after the draft, and it can be overwhelming. Don't worry, take a deep breath. I got you covered. Let's talk about the 10 biggest post-draft fallers. This is a prospect I really love. He was my wide receiver 2 pre-draft. Let's start with the positives. He's explosive, great at creating separation at every level of the field, and incredible after the catch. Now he's secured first-round draft capital. The negative? He landed in Baltimore. That's been a death sentence for wide receivers for years. There's hope that under new offensive coordinator Todd Monken, they'll be a more pass-happy team. But the reality is, ever since Lamar became the quarterback, they've been a run-heavy team. So he's in an organization not known for developing wide receivers and competing with Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews for targets in an already low-volume passing offense. I'm probably still higher on Flowers than most, but I think Addison has jumped Flowers in my rankings, and I'm going to have a really hard time deciding between QJ, Flowers, and Kincaid if I'm on the clock. Josh Downs was my wide receiver 3 pre-draft, so he's someone I'm a huge fan of. He fell a round further than I hoped. Being a third-round pick at his size is worrisome, but I did like the landing spot. Not a lot of target competition behind Michael Pittman, and they have no competition for him in the slot. He's fallen to wide receiver 5 for me, but definitely someone I'll still be looking at in the mid to late second round of rookie drafts. With the way this running back class has fallen apart, you'd think the only guy who went round 2 would be a huge riser. But sadly, the Seahawks decided to tank Zach Charbonnet's value and Kenneth Walker's value at the same time. These two backs don't complement each other well. Neither has a third down skill set, and they're both volume dependent grinders. I'm not sure you'll want to start either guy in fantasy unless the other is hurt. I don't know what Seattle was thinking here, but it's no fun for Dynasty. Sharb is still talented, he got the draft capital, and he'll have a role on day 1. I've got Sharbs as my RB4, but I'd want to get him early to mid-second rather than mid-first like I had him pre-draft. Pouring one out for my guy Tyler Scott. Scott was one of my favorite sleepers in the class, and he fell to round 4. He and Darnell Mooney are so similar as players, and I don't see him beating out Mooney for that role in the offense. Maybe in a few years they move on from Mooney and Scott steps in. I feel like the path to relevancy for Scott is pretty murky. Still, I love the talent, but he's fallen from my wide receiver 6 all the way down to my wide receiver 12. Unlike Downs and Scott, Hyatt is someone I did not think very highly of before the draft. He was my wide receiver 8, and really he was only even propped up that high because all the mock drafts had him going in the first round. He fell all the way to round 3. He went to a wide receiver needy team, but I'm not convinced he's better than Wan'Dale Robinson or even Darius Slayton. I've got him ranked wide receiver 13 after the draft, and he'd have to fall pretty far for me to want to draft him in Dynasty. I'm going to try not to come off here as victory lapping another guy's failure because that's just not cool. I genuinely feel for Will Levis, who lost out on millions of dollars by falling in the draft. But I will say I've always thought he was a bad quarterback prospect, and I've repeatedly said that I'll believe he's a first round pick when I actually see it happen. It didn't. His ADP has been propped up in Dynasty mock drafts for months by the assumption that he would be a top 10 pick. Now that he fell out of the first round, his ADP is about to plummet. He still has pretty solid draft investment from the Titans. He still has some physical tools, and now he has the chance to learn behind Tannehill for a bit, which he needs. Still, I wouldn't take him until the mid to late second in Superflex rookie drafts, and I wouldn't take him at all in one quarterback. Not only did he fall all the way to round 3, the big fella has fallen into the exact same role he had in college. The 6th offensive lineman to pair with a much better pass-catching tight end in Pat Freiermuth. He'll excel in that role for the Steelers, but he's not a fantasy asset. I was not very high on him to begin with, but now I'm not touching him in rookie drafts. This was kind of predictable for Kayshon Boutte, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Still, he was once a huge name in this 2023 class. He fell all the way to round 6. Not much chance of fantasy relevance. On the bright side, there aren't many decent wide receivers in New England, and if anybody can straighten this kid out, it's Bill Belichick. I'd consider him in the 4th round of a rookie draft. Pouring another one out for my guy Sean Tucker. I knew it was coming, but it still hurts. I don't know where he would have gone if he was healthy, but I feel confident he would have been drafted. Alas, this unconfirmed medical issue was clearly a factor, and it's rumored to be a heart issue. I really feel for the guy. At one point, he was my RB4. This one hurts. Prayers up for Sean Tucker. On the bright side, he signed with Tampa Bay as an undrafted free agent, and I could see him really pushing Rachaad White in camp if he's healthy. A fine 4th round dart throw, but Sean Tucker is definitely a huge faller for me. Another huge name in this class that got decimated at the draft. At least with Sean Tucker, we know why he fell. With Zach Evans, we're forced to face the uncomfortable reality that the NFL just didn't think he was very good. The landing spot is pretty solid, and I could see him pushing Cam Akers, who spent a lot of last year in the doghouse. Still, the hit rate on 6th round players for fantasy is abysmal. In my opinion, you'd be pretty silly to take him any higher than round 4 in a rookie draft. So those are my top 10 post-draft fallers in Dynasty Fantasy Football. For my full pre-draft thoughts on every prospect, check out this playlist right here, and I'll see you there.